I was busy my whole life. That used to sound like something noble. If you had met me at 35 or 42 or 51, I probably would have said it with a straight face and a quiet kind of pride. I'm busy. Things are hectic. I've got a lot going on. I wore those words like proof that I mattered, proof that I was needed, proof that I was doing life the right way. For a long time, I believed that if my days were packed, if my mind was overloaded, if I came home exhausted, then I must be moving forward. I must be building something. I must be becoming someone. But I'm old enough now to tell you something I wish someone had told me much earlier. Being busy is not the same as building a life. Being exhausted is not the same as making progress. And staying in motion is not the same as going somewhere that matters. There is a kind of lie that doesn't look like a lie when you're living inside it. It looks like responsibility. It looks like maturity. It looks like sacrifice. It sounds like, I'm doing this for my family. It sounds like, things are just hard right now. It sounds like, once I get through this season, I'll finally slow down and focus on what really matters. That last one is the most dangerous. Once I get through this season. I said that to myself for years, maybe decades. I said it when work was overwhelming. I said it when money was tight. I said it when the kids were little. I said it when I was trying to get ahead. I said it when I was trying not to fall behind. I said it so many times it became the background music of my life. Just get through this season. Then things will calm down. Then I'll be more present. Then I'll take care of my health. Then I'll invest in the future. Then I'll have the hard conversation. Then I'll fix what's been neglected. Then. And one day you wake up and realize that has quietly turned into 20 years. That is how life disappears. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic collapse. It disappears in small postponements that feel reasonable. It disappears through days that feel full but mean nothing when you try to remember them later. It disappears through constant urgency, constant noise, constant reaction, a phone call, a bill, a deadline, a favor, a repair, a distraction dressed up as duty. And if you live that way long enough, you stop noticing the difference between a full life and a crowded one. They are not the same thing. A crowded life can still be empty. I know that now, and I know it in a way that hurts. I was not lazy. In some ways, that was my biggest problem. If I had been lazy, maybe I would have seen the danger sooner. But I was always doing something, always solving something, always handling something. I was reliable, useful, productive. If there was a problem, I stepped in. If something needed to get done, I did it. If pressure showed up, I carried it. And because of that, I was able to tell myself a story. I was able to believe that all this effort had to be leading somewhere meaningful. I thought hard work would naturally become a meaningful life if I just kept going long enough. But hard work without clarity builds exhaustion. Hard work without direction builds frustration. Hard work without truth builds a life that looks respectable from the outside and feels hollow on the inside. That hollow feeling does not arrive in the beginning. In the beginning, busyness feels important, especially if you're a man. Especially if you were raised to believe your worth comes from how much pressure you can carry without complaining. Especially if you think being needed is the same thing as being loved. I believed that for a very long time. I thought if I kept pushing, kept providing, kept answering, kept showing up in practical ways, then everything else would somehow take care of itself. I didn't understand that relationships can starve while you are still physically present. I didn't understand that your body can quietly break down while you're still technically functioning. I didn't understand that years can pass in a blur of responsibility and leave behind almost nothing you actually meant to build. What I built, more than anything, was momentum. But momentum is dangerous when it has no direction. A lot of people think their biggest problem is a lack of motivation. That was never my problem. My problem was that I had so much momentum I never stopped long enough to ask whether it was taking me where I wanted to go. I woke up already mentally behind. I lived in reaction. I made decisions based on urgency, not importance. Whatever was loudest won. Whatever demanded the fastest response got my attention. Whatever threatened discomfort got handled first. I became very skilled at putting out fires, and I confused that skill with wisdom. But if you spend your whole life putting out fires, you may never notice that your house is built wrong. I wish I could tell you that I saw it early and changed course. I didn't. What happened was slower and sadder than that. At first, it was just a feeling, a strange emptiness at the end of very full days. I would finish a week that had been packed from morning to night and still feel, deep down, that none of it had moved me closer to the life I actually wanted. I didn't have language for it at the time. I thought maybe I was just tired. Maybe I needed a break. Maybe I needed a vacation. Maybe I needed life to calm down a little. But the problem was not that I needed rest from a meaningful life. The problem was that I was giving too much of myself to things that never should have owned so much of me in the first place. That is the part many people miss. The issue is not just overwork. The issue is misdirected life. You can survive long hours if they are connected to something real. You can endure pressure if it is part of building something you actually believe in. But when your days are consumed by shallow urgency, by maintenance, by emotional avoidance, by meaningless busyness, by problems you should never have accepted as your permanent reality, something inside you starts to thin out. You don't always notice it right away, but your spirit notices. Your relationships notice. Your future notices. There was a season of my life when almost every day felt the same. I would wake up, check what was already waiting for me, and begin reacting before I had even fully become a person that morning. Calls, messages, deadlines, unexpected expenses, things that needed fixing, things that needed deciding, things that needed attention right now. Because I could handle pressure, I kept handling it. Because I was competent, people kept bringing me more. Because I was dependable, life kept piling on. I thought this made me strong. What it actually did was train me to live with no inner space. And a man with no inner space will eventually lose the ability to hear his own life. That may sound dramatic, but I mean it literally. There comes a point when you no longer know what you really want because you have spent too long responding to what everyone else wants, what the day wants, what fear wants, what circumstance wants. You become useful, but you stop being awake. You become efficient, but not intentional. You can carry 1,000 responsibilities and still fail to protect the things that matter most. People lose their marriages that way. They lose their health that way. They lose years with their children that way. They lose their future that way. Not because they were evil, not because they were careless, because they were busy, just busy, busy enough to miss their own life. I remember a night I came home late, much later than I should have. The house was dark, quiet. Everyone was asleep. I stood in the kitchen for a while without turning on the light. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, but it did. Maybe because something in that silence felt honest, more honest than anything I had said to myself in years. I looked around at the room, at the table, at the small signs of family life, and I had a thought I didn't want to have. I felt like a guest in my own home, not a stranger, not an intruder, but not fully a part of it either. Like someone who came in late, moved carefully through the edges, and left again in the morning to continue some endless, unnamed mission that never seemed to end. That feeling shook me more than I admitted at the time, because it revealed something I had been covering with activity. I had been present in practical ways and absent in deeper ones. I paid attention to needs, but not always to people. I handled responsibilities, but not always relationships. I solved logistical problems and ignored emotional erosion. I told myself I was doing everything for the people I loved, and yet somehow I was becoming less available to them, not more. That is one of the cruelest tricks busyness plays on a person. It lets you feel virtuous while you neglect what matters most. It lets you call absence sacrifice. It lets you mistake provision for presence. It lets you believe your love is understood even when it is no longer felt. The more I look back, the more I see how much of my busyness was driven by fear. Not just obligation. Fear. Fear of stopping. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of failing. Fear of not being enough. Fear of seeing more clearly than I wanted to see. Because if I had slowed down, I might have had to ask myself some uncomfortable questions. Am I actually building a life, or just surviving one? Am I becoming who I'm meant to become, or just aging under pressure? Am I protecting my priorities, or just serving my habits? Does the way I spend my days reflect what I say matters most? Those are dangerous questions when you've spent years outrunning them. And so I kept moving. That's what a lot of people do. They keep moving because movement feels safer than honesty. If you stay in motion, you don't have to sit in the discomfort of your unresolved life. If you stay overwhelmed, you don't have to face the possibility that the structure of your life is wrong. If you keep telling yourself that everything will settle down later, you get to postpone the pain of changing now. But later is expensive. Later charges interest. Later takes more from you than you think. Later turns children into adults. Later turns spouses into strangers. Later turns your body into a warning sign. Later turns private unease into public consequences. One of the hardest truths I had to face was this. Exhaustion had become part of my identity. I didn't just experience it. I wore it. I used it. I almost needed it. If someone asked how I was doing, I would say busy, swamped, buried, running nonstop. And underneath those words, there was almost a strange pride, like being overwhelmed proved I was important, like the chaos around me confirmed my value. But the world does not reward you for how drained you are. Life does not become meaningful simply because you sacrificed a lot. You can wear yourself down for years and still end up far from what matters. I think many people know this somewhere deep down, but they don't let themselves fully feel it, because once you feel it, you have to reckon with it. You have to admit that some of your habits are not noble. They are destructive. Some of your routines are not disciplined. They are unconscious. Some of your responsibilities are not proof of maturity. They are evidence that you have never truly decided what deserves your life and what is not. That was true for me. I let too many things into my days. Too many demands. Too many tasks. Too many false urgencies. Too many patterns that made me feel active without making me whole. What hurts now is not only what I lost. It is how normal it all felt while I was losing it. That may be the most dangerous part of all. Nothing in my life looked dramatic enough to stop me. There was no spectacular collapse. No one moment where everything shattered and forced me to tell the truth. It happened quietly, respectably, gradually. It happened through the kind of life most people would call decent, responsible, hardworking, stable. I kept going. I kept solving. I kept showing up. And because of that, I never gave myself permission to ask the deeper question. Yes, but what is all of this building? Not what is it maintaining? Not what is it reacting to? Not what is it surviving? What is it building? When you are young, you think loss looks dramatic. You think you will know when you're losing something important. But many of the biggest losses in a life do not come with noise. They come with neglect. They come with postponement. They come with habits so ordinary you stop seeing them. A distracted dinner, a rushed conversation, a Saturday spent catching up instead of being present, a dream put aside because now isn't the right time, a relationship assumed to be safe because no one is openly complaining, a body ignored because it is still functioning, a soul never listened to because there is always something else to do. That is how the most expensive losses happen, not all at once, but piece by piece, quietly enough that you can keep calling yourself a good man while your real life thins out beneath you. I think about my children sometimes and how many versions of me they had to live with. The provider, the fixer, the tired man, the distracted man, the man whose body was in the room but whose mind was still on the bill, the problem, the pressure, the next thing. I love them. I never questioned that. But love felt safer to me as responsibility than as presence. Responsibility I understood. Presence was harder. Presence requires attention, emotional availability, the willingness to arrive not just with your labor, but with yourself. And that is much harder to give when you have spent your life fragmented into pieces. Maybe they respected what I carried. Maybe they even appreciated it. But respect is not the same as shared life. A family can appreciate your sacrifice and still ache from your absence. The same is true in marriage. I used to believe that loyalty was enough. That if I stayed, if I worked, if I remained committed, then the deeper parts would somehow take care of themselves. But closeness does not survive on loyalty alone. It needs attention, curiosity, softness, time that is not exhausted, conversation that is not logistical, presence that is not borrowed between obligations. When a person keeps delaying those things, the distance grows quietly, not always through fighting, sometimes through politeness, sometimes through adaptation, sometimes through two people learning how to function side by side without ever admitting how lonely they've both become. There is a memory I still carry. One afternoon, years ago, one of my children wanted to show me something. A drawing, I think, or maybe a school project. The details are blurry now, and that almost makes it worse. I remember being in the middle of something, mind already occupied, patience already thin. I remember glancing, nodding, saying something like, "That's good, buddy," or maybe later, "Let me finish this first." I didn't yell. I didn't reject him. I simply gave him a fraction of myself and moved on. At the time, it felt insignificant. One small moment among thousands. But that is exactly the problem. A life is made of moments that feel insignificant while they are happening. And if your pattern is distraction, then all those tiny moments accumulate into a relationship where love exists, but attention does not. Children can feel that difference long before they can explain it. At some point, I began to notice something else. I had become highly efficient at things that did not truly matter. I could manage deadlines, solve practical problems, navigate stress, organize logistics, carry weight, keep moving. But I had not developed the deeper disciplines that build an actual life. I had not become truly reflective. I had not protected silence. I had not learned to say no to what was devouring me. I had not built a structure that aligned my days with my values. I had learned how to endure. I had not learned how to live deliberately. That distinction matters more than people think. Endurance can make you admirable. Deliberate living can make you whole. Those are not the same thing. A person can endure for decades and still end up with a private ache no one sees. A person can be called strong while secretly feeling as though his real life never began. A person can become known for reliability and still carry a silent grief over everything he postponed, neglected, or never had the courage to claim. I know because that grief became familiar to me. Not dramatic, just familiar. A low ache, a quiet awareness that something essential had gone underbuilt. My body eventually began saying what my spirit had been saying for years. Not through one dramatic event, though there were warnings. It was more subtle than that. Less energy, less clarity, poorer sleep, a heaviness I could not explain away with one hard week. The body keeps score in ways pride does not understand. You can override it for a while, push it, ignore it, distract it, but the bill comes. It always comes. And when it does, it brings a frightening question with it. After all these years of running, what exactly have you built that can now hold you? If the machine slows down, what remains? Do you have peace? Do you have relationships with depth? Do you have financial wisdom, not just an income history? Do you have an inner life? Do you know how to be still without feeling useless? There came a point when I sat in a quiet room one evening and stopped defending myself. That may sound small, but for me, it was the beginning of truth. I stopped explaining, stopped justifying, stopped listing all the reasons life had been difficult. Maybe I had done the best I knew how to do, but I had not done the best I could have learned to do. There is a difference. And in that quiet room, with the lamp on and no one asking anything from me for a little while, I finally admitted something that broke me open. I had spent too much of my life reacting and not enough of it choosing. That was the wound beneath everything. Not just overwork, not just busyness. The deeper wound was the absence of chosen life. I had allowed too many years to be arranged by pressure instead of principle, by fear instead of clarity, by demand instead of direction. I had become a servant to necessity, including many false necessities I never challenged. And once I saw that, I could not unsee it. Every excuse sounded thinner. Every I had to became less convincing. Sometimes we say we had no choice when what we really mean is that we never built the courage to make a different one. That realization is painful, but it is also where life begins to return. Because the moment you stop defending your patterns, you can start changing them. The moment you stop glorifying your exhaustion, you can start protecting your energy. The moment you stop calling every demand important, you can start reclaiming your attention. The moment you stop waiting for life to calm down before you live it, you can begin building a life inside the reality you already have. A life does not change when your schedule gets easier. It changes when your standards get clearer. I began to understand that what matters most in a life is usually quiet. It does not scream. It does not flash red. It does not demand instant reaction. Real love is quiet. Wisdom is quiet. Long-term health is quiet. Savings are built quietly. Trust is built quietly. Character is formed quietly. Meaning is built quietly. And because all of that is quiet, noisy people lose it all the time. Busy people lose it all the time. Distracted people lose it all the time. They keep responding to what is loud and wonder years later why they feel empty. If I could speak to the younger man I used to be, I would not insult him. He was trying. He was sincere. He was afraid. He thought pressure was proof of purpose. He thought providing would naturally turn into closeness. He thought there would be more time later to become wise. I would not judge him, but I would interrupt him. I would put my hand on his shoulder and say, listen carefully. The life you keep postponing is the only one you get. The relationships you keep assuming will wait for you are changing while you're busy. The body you keep ignoring is keeping score. The dreams you call unrealistic are dying from neglect, not impossibility. The peace you think will come later has to be built now. And the habits you repeat every week are not neutral. They are constructing your future one ordinary day at a time. So let me leave you with the sentence that finally changed me. Not because it sounded beautiful, but because it was true. A full life is not measured by how much you carried. It is measured by what your carrying actually built. If your effort built peace, love, depth, character, freedom, trust, wisdom, and a life you can respect in the quiet, then your burden meant something. But if all your carrying built was fatigue, distraction, distance, and a reputation for being busy, then you do not need more endurance. You need a different life. I was busy my whole life. For too many years, I thought that sentence was a badge of honor. Now I hear it differently. Now I hear it as a warning. A warning that a person can give everything and still fail to give themselves to what matters. A warning that years can be consumed by urgency and leave behind almost nothing of lasting value. A warning that motion is not the same as meaning. A warning that if you do not choose your life, your habits will choose it for you. And habits are ruthless architects. Do not wait until the room is quiet and the years are behind you to ask what your life is building. Ask it now.